Announcing the arrival of the Honorable Senator Datuk Nur Jazlan bin Tan Sri Mohammed, Deputy President of the Senate.
Tamadun, lihat rangkap-rangkap pantun hidup beratus tahun. Bangkit 1000 perwira, selamat sejuta insan. Gelap dalam matahari insan, juga bisa insaf. Mana cerita panglima yang wujud benar. Awang hitam kaji awan putih bila berlayar. Hamba keliling dunia, tuannya yang terkenal.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing for Negaraku. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good afternoon to the Honorable Senator Datuk Nur Jazlan bin Tan Sri Mohammed, Deputy President of the Senate, Honorable Datuk Seri Dr. Noraini binti Ahmad, Deputy Minister of Women, Family and Community Development and Honorary Secretary of CPA Malaysia, Mr. Stephen Tarikh, Secretary General of Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, CPA, committee members of the CPA Malaysia branch, Your Excellencies speakers from state legislative assemblies, Your Excellencies High Commissioners and members of the Diplomatic Corps, friends from the media, honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's forum, The Power and Purpose of Parliamentary Diplomacy, Strengthening Relations Among Commonwealth Countries. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming the Honorable Datuk Seri Dr. Noraini binti Ahmad, Deputy Minister of Women, Family and Community Development and Honorary Secretary of CPA Malaysia to deliver her opening remarks. Your Honorable, the floor is yours.
Honorable Senator Datuk Nur Jazlan Tan Sri Mohammed, Deputy President of the Senate, our special guest, Mr. Stephen Tarikh, Secretary General of Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, CPA, committee members of CPA Malaysia branch, Your Excellencies speakers from state assembly, legislative assemblies, Your Excellencies High Commissioners, ambassadors and members of diplomatic corps, friends from the media, honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good afternoon. I am pleased to welcome all of you to this vital forum on the power and purpose of parliamentary diplomacy, strengthening relations among Commonwealth nations. Jointly organized by the Parliament of Malaysia and the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, CPA. As the Southeast Asia Regional Representative of the CPA International Executive Committee and the Honorary Secretary of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association of Malaysia branch, I am deeply honored to stand before such a distinguished gathering of parliamentarians, academia, researchers, students and parliamentary officers. Your presence underscores the importance of this forum and highlights our collective commitment to fostering stronger relationship within the Commonwealth. Today, we have convened to explore the critical role of parliamentary diplomacy in fostering stronger relationships among Commonwealth nations. Unlike traditional diplomacy, which often operates behind closed doors within executive chambers, parliamentary diplomacy offers a more inclusive and transparent platform. It invites elected representatives who are directly accountable to their constituents to engage openly in global dialogues on various pressing issues, from political and economic challenges to cultural and humanitarian concerns. The significance of inter-parliamentary dialogue and cooperation cannot be overstated in an increasingly interconnected world. As elected representatives, we have a unique opportunity and responsibility to engage with our counterparts, transcending borders and promoting mutual understanding. Therefore, by promoting interparliamentary dialogues, we enhance reciprocal comprehension and cooperation. We ensure that democracy flourishes and that all voices, including the marginalized and vulnerable, are heard and respected. The Commonwealth provides an ideal platform for parliamentary diplomacy with its shared history, values, and aspirations. Through organizations like the CPA, we can exchange ideas, share best practices, and work together to address the pressing challenges of our time, from climate change to sustainable development to gender equality and human rights. Our issues require collective action and commitment. As parliamentarians, we have the power to shape policies, influence decision-making processes, and ensure that the voices of our constituents are heard on the global stage. We can build bridges, foster trust, and promote collaboration among Commonwealth nations by engaging in parliamentary diplomacy. We can learn from one another's experiences, celebrate our diverse cultures, and work towards a common vision of a more peaceful, prosperous, and inclusive world. An example of learning from one another's experiences is by looking at the established conventions that underpinned the UK's parliamentary system. These conventions are historical artifacts and living practices that promote effective governance, accountability, and respect for democratic processes. Understanding and adapting these conventions to our national context can enrich our parliamentary tradition and enhance our democratic institutions. Parliamentarians carry the weight of our constituents' hopes and expectations. Our involvement in international affairs is not merely ceremonial but substantive and impactful. Through interparliamentary dialogue, we can shape global decision-making processes and ensure that our national interests are effectively represented on the world stage. Parliamentary diplomacy allows us to advocate for issues that resonate deeply within our communities, ranging from issues on gender equality, food security, and sustainable development. CPA has been at the forefront of promoting parliamentary diplomacy for over a century, and through initiatives like the CPA Network and the Commonwealth Parliamentarians with Disabilities Network, we are working to promote inclusivity, equality, and accessibility in our legislatures by empowering underrepresented groups and ensuring their full participation in the democratic process. We can build stronger, more resilient societies. I would be remiss if I did not highlight the critical role of women in parliamentary diplomacy. As the former chairperson of the Commonwealth Women Parliamentarians, I have witnessed first class how women's participation enriches our dialogue and decision-making process. We must continue empowering and supporting women parliamentarians, ensuring their voices are heard and their contributions recognized. And I would like to take this opportunity to inform that Parliament of Malaysia and CPA will be hosting the CPA Advanced Parliamentary Development Residency Program from the 23rd until 29th of September of this year. This program is an initiative of the CPA to foster deeper connections between Commonwealth parliaments, as well as to create opportunities for parliamentarians and parliamentary staff to share knowledge. Ladies and gentlemen, the forum today indicates the effectiveness of parliamentary diplomacy that unite Commonwealth nations. Remember the diversity that defines our Commonwealth as we participate in today's discussions. Our diverse histories, cultures, and experiences are our greatest asset and the fundamental thread that unites us. As we gather here today, let us reaffirm our commitment to the power and purpose of parliamentary diplomacy. Let us leverage our collective wisdom, expertise, and influence to strengthen the bonds that unite us as Commonwealth nations. Together, we can create a brighter future for all our citizens by mutual respect, understanding, and cooperation. I want to extend my heartfelt gratitude to all the panelists and the participants for your presence and contributions to this important forum. Your insights, experiences, and perspectives will undoubtedly enrich our discussions and help us chart a path forward. I look forward to engaging with each of you throughout this event and beyond. With that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Honorable. Ladies and gentlemen, today we will explore how parliamentary diplomacy strengthens international relations and fosters peaceful cooperation among Commonwealth nations. I'm sure we all look forward to insightful discussions that will enhance global decision-making and support democratic governance. Therefore, allow me to introduce our distinguished panelists for today. They are the Honorable Senator Datuk Nur Jazlan bin Tan Sri Mohammed, Deputy President of the Senate, Honorable Howard Lee, Member of Parliament for Ipoh Timur, and Mr. Stephen Twigg, Mr. Stephen Twigg, Secretary General of the CPA. Our moderator for this session is Mr. Izzwafi Hadi Kamilan, who is currently the Executive Director of the Institute for Political Reform and Democracy, or better known as Reform. He has an extensive background in parliamentary research, having served at the Parliament of Malaysia and Suhakam. Please join me in welcoming our panelists and moderator to the stage.
Test. Honorable Senator Datuk Nur Jazlan bin Tan Sri Muhammad, Deputy President of Senate, Honorable Datuk Seri Dr. Noraini binti Ahmad, Honorary Secretary of CPA Malaysia, Mr. Stephen Twigg, Secretary General of Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, CPA, Committee members of CPA Malaysia branch, Your Excellencies speakers from state legislative assemblies, Your Excellencies High Commissioners, ambassadors and members of diplomatic corps, friends from the media, honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And good afternoon. Apa khabar semua? First and foremost, welcome to this significant forum organized by Parliament of Malaysia and the Commonwealth Parliamentary Associations Malaysia. The power and purpose of parliamentary diplomacy, strengthening relation among Commonwealth nations. Ladies and gentlemen, the objectives of this forum is to provide a platform for participants to understand and to interact with our distinguished speakers on parliamentary diplomacy. I believe our distinguished speakers have very deep knowledge and hands-on experience with regards on our topic today. Participants will also gain a thorough understanding on the significance of parliamentary diplomacy in the contemporary world today and can measure of its relevancy and effort to uphold across the Commonwealth nations. Therefore, in order to make sure this forum runs smoothly, every speaker will be allowed to present between 12 to 15 minutes. Towards the end, we welcome guests to ask any questions that we gain fruitful and meaningful discussions. Before we start, allow me to introduce our distinguished panels today. We have the privilege of hearing from 3 distinguished panelists, each bringing a wealth of experience and insight into the extensive subject of parliamentary diplomacy from different perspectives. First, right on my left, our special guest, we have Mr. Stephen Twigg, the 8th Secretary General of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, CPA. He was appointed to these esteemed positions on August 1st, 2020. His extensive experience as a former UK parliamentarian, serving from 1997 to 2005, and again from 2010 to 2019, will bring a rich perspective to our forum. During his parliamentary career, he held several senior positions, including chairperson of the International Development Select Committee and Ministers for Schools. He was also a key figure in establishing the International Parliamentary Network for Education after the 2019 general elections, highlighting his dedication to global education initiative and international collaborations. Prior to his parliamentary career, Stephen Twigg studied at Balliol College, Oxford University, where he studies philosophy, politics, and economics. Welcome and apa khabar? In the middle, we have Honorable Senator Datuk Nur Jazlan bin Tan Sri Muhammad, the Deputy President of Senate. He served as the Deputy Minister of Home Affairs from 2015 to 2018 and previously was a Member of Parliament for Pulai from 2004 to 2018. During that period of time, he was also the Chairman of the Public Accounts Committee from 2013 to 2015, YB Senator Dato also is the fellow members of the Association of Chartered Accountant, ACCA UK since 1996, members of the Malaysian Institute of Accountant, and also has a huge experience in the corporate world. Please join me in congratulating Honorable Datuk Nur Jazlan on his one-year term as the Deputy President of the Senate. Yesterday, on 19 June 2024, was exactly 1 year since the Honorable Senator Dato was sworn in as the Deputy President of the Senate. Congratulations, Honorable Senator Dato. And at the end of the corner, we have very young members of Parliament among three distinguished speakers. Honorable Howard Lee. He's not only a politician, activist, but also a chef who has served as the members of Parliament for Ipoh Timur since November 2022. Before being elected as MP, he holds several positions, including as a former State Executive Council member in Perak State, two-term State Legislative Assembly for Perak 2013 until 2022, Executive Director of Institute Darul Rizwan, National Chairperson, Democratic Action Party Socialist Youth 2018-2021. Howard Lee is currently a member of Parliamentary Special Select Committee for Foreign Affairs and International Trade, the Asia Forum of Parliamentarians on Population and Development, AFPPD, Malaysia chapter as a Vice President. He also a member, Consultative Council for Foreign Policy under Minister of Foreign Affairs. Welcome, and how are you, YB? Okay. Before we start presentation by our panelists today, allow me to briefly give in the context our topic of discussions. We understand that the members of Parliament have played a role in terms of passing the bill, oversight the government of the day, and discuss public matters. But we are talking about the Parliament in 21st centuries. The roles of members of Parliament becoming more advanced due to the globalization. So they have an opportunity to exchange their views, their opinion with other colleagues or other members of Parliament from different parts of the world. So parliamentary diplomacy also traditionally being seen as exclusively only for the officers coming from the ministries of foreign affairs. But when we are talking about parliamentary diplomacy, the speakers always receive international visit coming not only from the speakers, the members of Parliament, but also coming from the parliamentary staff. So this is becoming a pivotal to the Parliament itself to play and to discuss issues that cross cultures, cross society, especially on human rights, especially on sustainable development and others. So to start our session, I would like to ask a question for the Dato Nur Jazlan. Due to you as the head, as a speaker and the deputy speaker, normally Honorable Senator Dato will receive international visit that I mentioned just now. You also, from time to time, becoming head of delegation, attending international conference like CPA, IPU, and multilateral conference. So from your point, and I also been informed that you just coming back from your working visit from Republic of Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, and Kazakhstan. So within 12 to 15 minutes, if you can elaborate what is so important to have parliamentary diplomacy in the parliament itself, due to we already have, I believe, during your period of time going to Tajikistan and these countries, the prime ministers, Dato Sri Anwar Ibrahim, also going to this part of these countries. So if you can differentiate the role that you play between the executive government and the role that you play in parliamentary diplomacy. The floor is yours.
So you want me to go to the restroom or?
You can use restroom or you...
Is my speech starting now?
Yeah.
My introductory remarks?
Yeah, you can start with restroom.
All right. Make it more formal.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Our special guest, Mr. Stephen Twigg, Secretary General of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, Mr. Howard Lee, young man. I'm looking up to him as the future of Malaysia. Committee Datuk Noraini, who I have also known for a long, long time. Yes, I won't mention your age, don't worry. Committee members of the CPA Malaysia branch, Your Excellencies, speakers from the state legislative assemblies, Your Excellencies, High Commissioners, ambassadors, and members of the diplomatic corps, friends of the media, and honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to say a few kind words to our special guest for making this trip to Malaysia. First time. And please give him a warm welcome. And hopefully not the last time. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to approach my remarks from a personal point of view. Being a citizen of a former colony, although when I was born, Malaysia was no longer a colony, but the ties are still deep. I went to study in the UK. In fact, I'm wearing this orange tie today. And before Dr. Hatta gets too excited, because this is the color of his party. I'm not wearing this because of because I am saluting your party, but this is the official tie of my accounting association, ACCA. I've also been a Global Council member, and also I have a deep understanding of Britain as the former colonial master. Forgive me, Stephen, I'm not using the words colonial master for the, for the sake of it, but it gives the background to what I'm going to say later. Ladies and gentlemen, I have had the opportunity of visiting the UK for the first time in 1979. It was just 4 years after the UK asked the IMF for a lot of money to stabilize its economy. An economy that was wrecked because of 2 world wars and also the loss of the empire. And I remember those times. Oxford Street was only half opened. What you see today is not the Oxford Street I used to see before. There was rubbish on the streets, strikes every day. Underground was in a mess. And it didn't look a country that I would look up to as a young Malaysian at that time. And then, well, don't get me wrong, but Margaret Thatcher, who was my hero at that time, because I looked up to her, because she came in and did, massive reform. And by the time I went there as a student in 1983, the reform was on the way. But she had a lot of challenges to overcome. Trade unions, bad economy, but she pushed through reforms. She changed London into an international financial center, and the UK recovered economically back to the 5th biggest economy in the world. I'm not sure whether that's the right place, but it's now the 5th biggest economy in the world. So there was that massive change that I, as a young student, looked up to the UK as a model for how Malaysia should be. And then, of course, I don't know, maybe because of sentimentality and love for the empire, sorry again, Britain went through Brexit. And now we are seeing the impact of it. Frequent political changes, economy in the doldrums, and no longer looking as the country that we can look forward to model ourselves for the future. By the way, in Malaysia also we're having the same problem, politically anyway. But, we look for, examples in the world that we can follow and that we can have confidence that if we subscribe to the, the model that you have, it will change things. It will make us good again. It will make us prosper. So that's why I would like to take this opportunity to lay out the challenges of the CPA into the future. I can see that the world is becoming more divisive today. I see the UK, in fact, Australia also, New Zealand, I'm not too sure, but, taking sides with the US against the rest. Well, the rest mainly remaining, what I'm referring to is Russia and China and other countries that may be a threat to America. Now, in this new world order, conflict resolution will become a very important mechanism to diffuse the situation. Globalization has become deglobalization. Countries, instead of being open in trade, investment, become more insular. And if the CPA wants the Commonwealth, by the way, the Commonwealth was created after the Second World War because Britain had lost its empire. So going forward into the future, how can Malaysia participate in what the CPA is going to do, especially in terms of conflict resolution, building relationships, and also being neutral? I think that's the biggest challenge that we have today. If Malaysia is going to take part in this new global order, we have to play the role of a friend to everyone. And I hope the CPA will also take the same approach. I've been told that the CPA is now facing issues in Africa because of funding, because of social and cultural issues, which may also be a challenge to pull everybody back together. Remember, like I said, we used to look at the UK as the model. Therefore, everybody would come together under one umbrella. Today, with social media, with AI coming into the future, where politics will be influenced by fake videos, all sorts of things, which will influence people into going away from the normal political thinking, ideologies that we are used to, that bring people together. People are becoming more individualistic. People read the news that they want to read, whether it's true or not. So politics going into the future will have a problem. How to reconcile these realities that we have today. I would like to touch a bit on my role as Deputy Home Minister before. I was in part of the executive. Now, the Home Affairs Ministry had learned a lot from Theresa May when she was Home Minister, where we implemented something like the Human Slavery Act in Malaysia due to her implementation of the Human Slavery Act in the UK. We had a lot of exchanges in terms of enforcement agencies. We had a lot of joint operations when it comes to scams, trafficking in persons. And I go back again. This is the model that we look forward to, which is the leading country in the Commonwealth. But what was missing was the link, the back channel. We call it the informal diplomacy between parliaments, because when you're in the executive, you're busy all the time. You don't have time to network. You don't have time to, read messages from your colleagues. ministerial colleagues in the countries to respond to their requests. So what happens is parliamentarians can help to play this role, where we are the back channel, where we have close relationship with the executive, and we can resolve any issues, any conflicts, any requests quicker than waiting for the executive to communicate with each other. So therefore, this is one role that the CPA can strengthen to make sure that the lines of communication between members of parliament in all its member countries can have closer relationships, personal relationships, and can communicate with each other at all times. No excuse. There is no excuse now. We have social media. The phone is always on. And lastly, I would like to touch on my recent visit to Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and Kazakhstan. I was given the guest status level in Tajikistan, and I was actually received by the president of Tajikistan, who sees the importance of the parliament in his country to have closer relationship with other countries. In those countries, the parliament is the speaker of the parliament is given a level of respect, just below the president. It's not the same as the House of Chairman, President of the House of Lords, Speaker of the House of Lords. It doesn't work that way. But in those countries, Central Asia especially, the Speaker of the Parliament is given a very high status. So that's why I think maybe I was given that kind of status. So we had a good discussion. He told me what he wanted, and I said, this is maybe what we can do, and I'll bring it back. I'll bring back his request to the Prime Minister here, the executive. Same thing happened in Uzbekistan. Met the Speaker there of the Parliament, met the Speaker of the Senate, met ministers, foreign affairs, trade, industry. I was given a lot of access to them because they wanted to convey messages directly, and they wanted action to be taken quickly and not through diplomatic channels. Sometimes if you go through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, it can take a long time. Sorry, High Commissioner. So this is where the parliaments can build a role and participate in diplomatic relations. In Kazakhstan too, the same thing happened. I think the personal relationships between members of parliament will help to achieve this in the future. Interesting fact, Mr. David Cameron was just there in those countries just 2 months ago. But he was promoting the UK's rights, not the CPA, which to me, it's a bit unbecoming of the leading country in the CPA. But I can see what he was trying to do, even with the UK only slant. But the CPA can also play a role in the development of democracy in Central Asian parliaments. They have a young population. 60% of their population is below 35 years old. So they look forward, just as I looked forward when I was young, at a model that they can use to develop their country, to develop prosperity in their country. So, Mr. Twigg, I think that's something that can be developed too. The relationship between CPA countries and non-CPA countries, where the model of the CPA countries can be adopted, not everything, but some parts which suit the development of the parliaments in those countries. And finally, I'm such a, what's the word? Recalcitrant. But I have to say this. I was watching TV today. Sky News, I watch it every day because they have a good coverage of the UK elections. And the latest polling says that the Conservatives are going to end up with maybe less than 100 seats. First time in history. But they have 20% of the vote, according to the poll. Labour is going to end up with a majority of 200 seats. Majority. 200 seats in 600 constituencies, 650 constituencies, with a 38% polling result. So that throws the concept of parliamentary democracy out of track. It's a government that will have a very strong majority, but only has 38% support. The one party, the first past the post system is also in question now. But it's okay, it's Mr. Twigg's party. But all I'm saying is, it would be an anomaly, or it would be a paradox. What's the right word? What's the diplomatic word to use? But a country with a huge parliamentary majority, but with expected 38% of the vote, is now going to take the lead in the world. Well, I'm not even going to mention the US. That's another matter. But in Malaysia, I think we also need some calming down after the what do you call it? I want to use a different word, but I can't because I'm being diplomatic. After the storms of the last 6 years, but we need some guidance. We need some exchange. We need some ideas how to calm things down in the new world of politics, new world of global economy, in a new world of social upheaval. So that's all I'm going to say. Thank you again for your visit here. I apologize again for what I said that might not be to your liking. Well, do I need to apologize? No, I don't need to apologize. It's a parliament after all. We're free to express our opinions. But I hope you have felt our honest hospitality, and we want the CPA to flourish and to prosper into the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, YB Senator Dato, on your points. You are talking about a lot of things and covered various issues. You started with your personal experience when you studied in UK, and then you look on how Malaysia should, the position of Malaysia that should take during this new and global order. And you also touch about your experiences and your discussions in Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and Kazakhstan. And then you also touch about the CPA. What CPA should take a role in this new era. I would like to ask a question to YB Howard Lee. You are former state exco. You are also currently young members of parliament. Among young members of parliament, I'm not so sure the numbers. I think in terms of percentage, how many is like 13%? Yeah. Yeah, in the under 40. Under 40. Yeah. But now he's 41 years old right now. Yeah. Okay. So from your, I believe that within like 2 years, you already have an opportunity. Go to multilateral conference, IPU, CPA, FPPPD, and everything. So as a young new members of Parliament, what do you think Parliament should equip? What else that you need in order to make sure that you can play your roles in parliamentary diplomacy? Plus, another question is that when you are the state ESCO members, do you think that the parliamentary diplomacy apply in the state level? Because we have like 5 or 6 excellency speakers. So please.
Do I speak here or do I go there?
Yeah.
Do I need to? Okay. Your Excellencies from different missions, fellow members of Parliament, former members of Parliament, members of the Senate, and to our special guest, from the United Kingdom and the CPA, and also our favorite, most cantankerous recalcitrant, the Deputy President of the Senate. I'm going to try not to trigger a by-election. If I suddenly kind of keel over, you'll know why, because I'm still kind of suffering from bronchitis. Don't worry, it's not contagious. But if I suddenly cough ravenously, don't worry, I won't die yet. Very complex questions to be answered in 12 to 15 minutes, but I'll try my best. I remember being told by someone very wise and very old, and old not just in age, but old in experience in diplomacy, that diplomacy is the art of being a productive busybody. Diplomacy is being a busybody. And I think in politics, and if someone somehow somewhat ends up in the role or elected into being a member of Parliament or a member of state legislature, you are generally a busybody because you care about things other people don't. You care more about things than most other people, like the country, the state of affairs of the nation, the state of the people, state of the economy. You care about lots of things. And I think as an MP, unfortunately, in this day and age, like what the Deputy President of the Senate mentioned just now, we are in a complete different set of politics globally, as well as domestically here in Malaysia, where there is a mismatch between expectations of what politics is and what politics actually is. Now, if one was to, take from different points of view, or let's say, for example, if we were to have an imaginary job description from the point of what an MP should be from the electorate, that job description will be very, very, very different from the job description of basically the party. So we as MPs, we have to answer to the party. We have to answer to the electorate. We have to answer to our constituency, as in the physical space of the constituency, the needs and the requirements of, roads and drains and stuff, all these boring but important stuff. So there's so many different sets of expectations that we as MPs have to speak to, that we have to care for, and we have to take care of. And none of these job descriptions have diplomacy in it. None. I don't think if you were to go and ask any of my 160,000 electorate, does Howard Lee's job description include speaking to Tom, speaking to Gabby, speaking to diplomats? I think they'll say, don't waste your time doing that, go and deal with my clogged drains, right? We have State Assembly men and women here as well. Now, I can officially say that the Constitution, what the Constitution prescribes in terms of the job of a Member of Parliament, definitely does not include looking at clogged drains and dealing with potholes. But are we expected to deal with all of that? Absolutely. By whom? By the most important part of the political value chain, the electorate. So how does one do both? Deal with clogged drains and potholes, as well as do diplomacy. First, you must have interest in it. Now, I'm slightly different, and I would say, I don't know whether it's a curse or a blessing, that I've always been interested in foreign policy. I've always been interested in international relations. When I was a state assemblyman, I was I fell into a role. It wasn't a small role. I was the president of the International Union of Socialist Youth, which is the largest youth political organization in the world, with 146 member organizations from 110 countries. Now, I fell into that by accident. But nonetheless, that took me to places that I've never been to, including the United Nations, including Burkina Faso, which took literally 49 hours for me to get to and 49 hours back. And these are experiences that opened my eyes to the importance of diplomacy, the importance of understanding. Another person, very wise, very important, by the name of Cui Tiankai, the former Chinese ambassador to Japan and the United States, once also said to me that diplomacy is also developing empathy. Diplomacy is developing empathy. And empathy requires understanding. And when you do that amount of traveling and you speak to that amount of people from different cultures in different countries, you develop a sense of being able to understand and internalize what you have never seen or heard before. That, to me, is empathy. And in politics, the strongest, most powerful tool is empathy. And the reason why I said all of that is, I think, despite the fact that young MP, I was elected when I was 29 into a state legislative assembly, no one told me what my job description was. And definitely no one told me that diplomacy is part of it. But as you get into the job, and no one is going to equip you with what you need to know either. I think we've got 2 first-term state assembly men and women here, and I think they were thrown in right at the deep end, like I was. But I would like to offer this view, and for all of you, I see lots of young faces, really young faces, not a pretender young like me. If you ever think about stepping into the political arena, if you ever think about joining a political party and eventually being elected into public office, do one thing. Explore your capacity in diplomacy. What does diplomacy mean? Now, let me expand. Meaning to go and speak to, once you start being even part of a political party and you get yourself into an elected position in a political party, you're going to start having random diplomats calling you to have dinner. Go to those dinner. It's free. I shall not mention that, but yeah, sometimes there are drinks too. Take it, but don't just take the dinner and drinks. Take the intel you will extract from those conversations. Take that empathy that you will be able to extract from those diplomats. Ask them questions like they ask you. Give as good as you take, right? Because I think that is first level diplomacy. And I fully and totally and absolutely agree with the Senate Deputy President that actually diplomacy can and should be practiced at all levels, not just high-table diplomacy, but right down to when you're just a normal member of a political party or even as a citizen. Diplomacy needs to happen at all levels. Not just on dinner tables, with drinks, with diplomats, but actually at all levels, especially with tourists. You can... What was that? Okay. The point that I'm trying to make is that every single one of you here in this hall have some kind of interest in politics and will have some kind of interest in international relations or foreign affairs. And for me, there is nothing more important in my job, apart from representing my people and looking at clogged drains and dealing with potholes, than actually understanding the world. And the only way that you can really understand the world is by talking to other people. And by talking to other people, you are practicing diplomacy. And in response of what Datuk Nur Jazlan said, which is actually it is so much easier to deal and do diplomacy when you are not part of the executive. Because my experience, the second part of the question was my experience when I was in the state cabinet. When you go somewhere, when you're a state minister or you're a federal minister or a deputy minister, you're hampered by protocol. You can't have real conversations. You can only speak from a script. You can't speak your mind. You certainly can't do things freely. But when you're a backbencher, you have the mandate of the people. So you have that gravitas that people will afford you. You have that respect that people will hear and listen to what you say without the hampering protocol that stops you from getting the message across, right? Which is why many of friends from the diplomatic corps like having dinners with backbenchers, because we give them intel and we just extract as much intel from them as we can too. And that intel builds a worldview. It informs your worldview. And when you're an MP, having an accurate or closer to a more accurate worldview will inform the way in which you make your decisions when you vote in Parliament. I think to close off what I have to say as an introduction, to be more informed, to be on the closer end to accuracy of what the world is especially important in this day and age. We are in a global geopolitical storm, from the Sahel to Gaza to Ukraine. I mean, peace is becoming more and more of an exception than the rule. And it's scary. And, we have departed from a unipolar world to, we kind of skipped and fast forwarded from a unipolar world, skipped past a bipolar world, and we're now in a multipolar world, where there is no longer one example that we can refer to. There's so many different examples that we don't want to refer to. So we must carve out our own path. And to carve out our own path, we need to be able to empathize with other countries, understand other countries, understand other people and other cultures, learn from their mistakes, learn from their strengths, and put together our own worldview, a more accurate worldview by understanding others so that we can craft a better path for ourselves. And all of that can only come from diplomacy, especially if you want to have a path in politics. So politics and diplomacy goes hand in hand. It's not in our job description, but we do it every day, every moment, every single second in our mandate. So even if you're not an elected official, even if you're not an MP or a state assemblyman, start looking into diplomacy, especially those who want to have a career in it. Start looking into diplomacy, and diplomacy is much easier when you're an MP. So I think I'll stop there. I don't know if, can I stop there? Thank you. I'll just stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, YB Howard Lee. You touch quite a big varieties of information. You mentioned about how to develop an empathy. I mean, you need to understand different cultures, different background of people. You encourage young people who would like to join in politics, go over to political functions and events, and then explore and then interview, asking, and then I mean, extract the questions and everything. Understand. You also mentioned about when you are in the state ESCO, you mentioned about protocol is one of the other that makes you cannot sit or state your mind. So, and then overall you mentioned that to be a better person, you need to understand other persons, other cultures. I think it's a good and insightful information that you shared just now. So right now we have Mr. Stephen Tweed. So today is about CPA. Like everyone, Yang Berhormat Datuk Seri Noraini also mentioned or said something about CPA that need look forward what's next. And YB Senator Datuk Nur Jazlan also mentioned about CPA. So from your experience, because you already in this position since 2020, so already 4 years, I believe if you can share the challenges that you face when you, becoming as the second gen of CPA, with regards of the parliamentary diplomacy, you face different cultures, different backgrounds. So in Southeast Asia, we have Singapore and Malaysia. There is another, every part of the world, they have a different in Africa and also in Europe. So there are totally different. So if you can share your insightful information about what had been done by CPA with regards of parliamentary diplomacy, your challenges that you face when you try to promote parliamentary diplomacy, what's next? Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Kamilan. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Honourable Deputy President, Honourable Lee, Honourable Members and Senators, all protocols observed, I hope. It's wonderful to be here, as was said, my first time in Malaysia, and I prepared some things to say, and I'll try to say them, but when you speak after two really fascinating and thought-provoking contributions, it seems wrong not to say something in response to what they've each said. So I suppose my first reflection, as was reflected in my introduction, is I used to be a parliamentarian. I was elected to the UK Parliament, and I stood down at the previous British general election in 2019. So one of the challenges for me in this role is becoming neutral. And therefore, I am not here to represent the political party that I previously represented in the UK Parliament that may or may not be on the verge of having that huge majority that the Deputy President described. But I very much, Honourable Lee's points about getting involved as a young person resonated with me, because I got involved in the Labour Party when I was a teenager in the early 1980s, when Margaret Thatcher was the Prime Minister, and certainly we took a rather different view of her than the one that the Deputy President has expressed here today. Although I think with age I can see that the pros as well as the cons of some of the things that were done in that period. But I think both our previous speakers have given me a lot to think about. I think given us a lot to think about, and have really reminded us of the context in which we have this discussion, a context of a world in which there is a breakdown in trust, in politics and in government. I would take that further, a broader breakdown in trust in traditional institutions. This is combined with much more access to information, which has a very positive side to it, a decline in automatic deference, which I think is overwhelmingly a positive thing, but which has given rise to some of these concerning features, in particular, a greater polarization in politics and some of what we've seen through social media that I will touch upon today. I was interested some of the points that the Honourable Lee made about being a young parliamentarian, about being engaged at the state level as well. And I particularly think, having been a minister myself, that his point about the difference you can make as a backbencher without some of the constraints of being in executive office really resonated with my experience as well. And also his point about the local and the international. And, you know, I can recall when I was a member of Parliament that we may be very, very focused in Parliament on the big international questions, but you'd go back to your constituency at the weekend and knock on doors and people were complaining about the state of the pavements or the state of the roads and those sorts of things that were directly affecting their lives. Some of you will know the CPA, and I apologise to those that know us well because I'll say a little bit by way of introduction. We bring together all of the parliaments and legislatures of the Commonwealth. So very much national and subnational. Your state parliaments are absolutely part of our organisation on an equal footing with your national parliament. And there are around 180 such legislatures across the Commonwealth, with we think around 18,000, we can't always keep tab, elected legislators, and then of course the parliamentary staff who play such a crucial role, some of you are here today, in supporting the work of parliaments. I want to thank those who currently or have previously served in governance roles on behalf of Malaysia, and we have a number at the front here today. And if I can particularly mention Narayani, the Honourable Ahmad, who's played such an important role as a former chair of our Commonwealth Women Parliamentarians Network and now serving again on our International Executive Committee. To address the question directly, how the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association seeks to exercise parliamentary diplomacy, I'm going to divide what I say into three. Strengthening parliaments institutionally, supporting parliamentarians and parliamentary staff individually, and then thirdly, working in partnership with others. So let me start with institutional strengthening, because I think in a way it's a critical component of responding to the challenges that my two fellow panelists have already set out. We have a long-standing tool that we call our benchmarks for democratic legislatures. It's all about what the best practice is for a parliament that is as effective at its job as possible. Separation of powers, independence of government, the capacity and the resources for Parliament to operate effectively, proper resourcing and recognition for opposition and minority parties, independent, cross-party, select committees. And these were developed nearly 20 years ago. They were updated 6 years ago to reflect the very important role that parliaments play in the oversight and implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, the UN Global Goals. A second important strand of work is around gender-sensitive parliaments, and in particular around seeking increases in the numbers of women elected to parliaments. And we were talking informally about this just before this afternoon's session. The parliaments of the Commonwealth include some of the best performers in the world. Rwanda, where a majority of the members of parliament are women. South Africa, whose recent election confirmed again well over 40% of their members of parliament are women, down to some where there are still, believe it or not, no women at all in their parliaments. And we have that goal of at the very least 30%, but we want to aim higher in terms of the numbers of women there should be in parliaments across the Commonwealth. We also have, and I'm delighted the regional champion for this network is here with us, our Disabilities Network, the Commonwealth Parliamentarians with Disabilities, addressing, to use the language that you used to me last night, the special abilities and special needs of disabled people, both ensuring that parliaments are inclusive and that parliamentarians who themselves have disabilities are given every support and recognition that can be given. A lot of what we do as an organisation is about very practical measures to assist parliaments as institutions to be effective. And if parliaments are to play a role in diplomacy, it can't just be left to the individuals. It's got to be about having an effective, healthy and functioning parliamentary institution. But of course, you are all individuals, we are all individuals. And one of the things that I often reflect on, and I was thinking it further listening to the other two speakers, is that the heart of the mission of the CPA, and indeed of the plethora of other international interparliamentary organizations, is the principle of mutual learning. I think Honourable Lee made the point, there is no single example. I'm very, very conscious as a British person with the colonial history that we were rightly reminded of, a former Member of Parliament in the UK. The CPA's headquarters is in the UK. The CPA is not about the UK teaching everyone else how it's done in the UK. There may sometimes be good examples from the UK Parliament, but plenty of times there won't be, and there will be great examples that we can all learn from one another, including from you here in Malaysia. And of course, with advances in technology, there is scope to do far more of this in a range of ways that are more flexible and innovative than before. 3 years ago, we launched for the first time our online Parliamentary Academy. Any of you who's either a member of parliamentary staff or an elected member, you are able to sign up to that in your own time, free of charge, with a range of different courses available, all of it to promote the upskilling of parliaments, all of it to strengthen your ability to be effective parliamentarians, including in this important strand of parliamentary diplomacy. And I'm absolutely delighted that as part of that academy programme, we will be coming to Malaysia in September for an in-person residency for some of those parliamentarians across the Commonwealth who've participated in those activities. We organise a range of other events. So earlier this week I was in Singapore, where we had an event looking at artificial intelligence, looking at the issue that the Deputy President referred to of these fake videos, deep fakes, misinformation, disinformation, but also looking at some of the positives that artificial intelligence can bring for parliaments and for governments and for, most importantly, for citizens as we move forward. In August, we will have our Commonwealth Women Parliamentarians Workshop in Nigeria, and we have a number of regional events through the year, culminating in our annual conference in Sydney, Australia, in November, and I look forward to welcoming delegations there from Malaysia. Those events are an incredibly important opportunity for parliamentarians to engage with each other and learn from each other. We're also looking at our communications. We have a regular magazine that some of you will have seen, The Parliamentarian. We have our website and social media, but we're also developing now an online platform so that parliamentarians and parliamentary staff can be in touch with each other through a CPA platform, some of the debates that happen at events like this so that they can continue and be taken beyond the immediate physical audience. So that is what we do briefly to support you individually. Let me finish by saying something about partnerships and how we fit into the wider Commonwealth. And I think it speaks to a bigger debate that's been touched upon about the Commonwealth itself and its relevance in the modern world, partly because of its history and partly because of the contemporary constraints and challenges that have already been described so well by the other panelists. This year in October, the Commonwealth heads of government will meet, as they do every other year, in Samoa in the Pacific, and they will elect the next Secretary-General, not of the CPA, of the Commonwealth itself, to succeed Baroness Patricia Scotland. And we have 3 strong declared candidates from Ghana, from Lesotho and from the Gambia who are vying for that position as Commonwealth Secretary-General. And it will be a very important moment as the Commonwealth seeks to rise to some of the huge challenges that have been described. And part of our role as the CPA is to be there, as we will be, and to ensure that the voices and interests of parliaments and parliamentarians are heard as part of that Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. Similarly, we will attend other Commonwealth events like the recent Commonwealth Law Ministers meeting to ensure that the interests, the voices, the priorities of parliaments and parliamentarians are heard there as well. Because for all the reasons that have been given that I won't repeat, we are at a critical point in politics, whether that's locally, at a state level, domestically, at a national level, or indeed internationally. And I would argue that at this time, parliamentary diplomacy alongside other forms of diplomacy, including, of course, citizen diplomacy, as well as the more traditional government-to-government diplomacy, is more important than ever. Some of those barriers that the Deputy President described that are going up again, whether in terms of trade or other aspects of life between peoples and between countries, we have an opportunity to break some of those barriers down, and parliamentarians, parliamentary staff and others engaged in this sphere can play a really important role ensuring that that happens. The Commonwealth is different to other multilateral organizations. It is a network. It is based on a principle of equality of nations, big and small, rich and poor, learning one from each other. But as we look at the issues of rising authoritarianism, polarization, different forms of populism in different countries, combine that with the economic and social challenges and how the world just isn't anywhere close to achieving Agenda 2030 and the Sustainable Development Goals that were written now almost a decade ago, and of course the ever-present threat of climate change, I think it makes it more important than ever that we have the Commonwealth, the CPA within the Commonwealth, but that we're constantly questioning ourselves about how we can be as effective and authentic as possible. And I finish with just one point, and it was mentioned in my introduction. My personal passion throughout my life really has been about education and the importance of education. And one of the things that strikes me, and it struck me when we were in Singapore earlier in the week talking about the impact of artificial intelligence and social media and some of the related challenges that brings, how critical education is, whether that is education of children and young people in the traditional sense where learning about political literacy, citizenship, civics as it's sometimes described, has always struck me as an incredibly important area that many, many countries neglect, I'm afraid, but also the importance of ongoing education with and of citizens, and the role that parliaments themselves institutionally, as well as parliamentarians individually, can play in raising awareness. I am by my nature an optimist, and I try to remain an optimist even as I get older and as some of the challenges of the world seem to get worse and worse. But in the end, my optimism is restored when I do visits like the one I'm doing here in Malaysia and ones that I've done all across the Commonwealth over the last few years, that I think that the young people in particular of the Commonwealth, parliamentarians and those working in parliaments in the Commonwealth, actually the future solutions lie with all of you. And my sense is that you are actually ready and able to rise to that challenge. You won't leave it just to the traditional ways of doing things. You'll do it in new and innovative ways from which all of us will learn. And that makes me feel in the end there are still more grounds, despite everything, for optimism than pessimism. So thank you for listening to me here this afternoon. I really look forward to the opportunity to hear your points of view and answer any questions that you might have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Again, Mr. Stephens, for the various important information that you share. You started with saying that you, as a CPA, becoming a neutral, and then deficit trust in traditional institutions. You mentioned about strengthening parliamentary institutions. I just wanted to share before I open question and answer sessions. I left Parliament in 2020 when I finished my Fulbright at Albany, New York. I tried actually after 2020, I tried several times to register as a participant in the online CPA Academy. Yeah, but I have been rejected. Yeah, because I'm no longer a parliamentary officer. Not because of technical and everything, because I already becoming a public and working outside of Parliament compound. So I just wanted to share to all parliamentary staff, take an opportunity, register and learn. I'm still in the process of learning. Reform, we advocate on parliamentary reform. We also advocate on parliamentary issues, but I also still in the process of learning. That's the reason why parliamentary staff here, State Legislative Assembly who are also CPA members can register and then do online, and then receive a training through online by CPA Academy. So right now it's a question and answer session. Because of time constraint, I can only give like 2 persons to to go to the mic and ask a question to our distinguished speakers. We open question and answer sessions. Please. Is there any question? Yeah, okay. One. Is there anyone else? Yeah, please. You can.
Hi. Good afternoon, everyone. I have one question here. I'm sorry, my name is Muhammad Faiz. I'm from the Parliament, from House of Parliament, Malaysia. And then my question is solely on this one topic, which is the future direction of CPA. And it goes to Mr. Stephen Twigg. Okay, what are the future prospects of parliamentary diplomacy in strengthening Commonwealth relations? And how can emerging issues such as digital diplomacy and cybersecurity be integrated into the framework of parliamentary diplomacy? That's all.
Yeah, you mentioned about digital diplomacy.
Thank you very much for that question. And I'm going to use the question to respond to actually something the Deputy President said that I neglected to mention in my speech. There is a big, long-standing issue that relates directly to the future of the CPA, which is about our legal status. And we've been seeking to secure a change in our legal status in the United Kingdom for more than 30 years. We've started to make serious progress on it in the last year, and we're hopeful of securing that legislation, which then will give us a sure footing for the future, because if we don't, we will be looking seriously at relocating outside of the United Kingdom to somewhere that will be willing to give us that legal status. We are constantly evolving, learning from our members, learning from others, and what we'll be doing next year is a big engagement with Parliament's parliamentarians and partners about our next strategic plan. And I am very, very confident, based on conversations I've had over the last 2 years in particular, that the questions that have just been asked about are going to be central to that. That those elements around cybersecurity, some of the issues I mentioned that we've been talking about in Singapore this week on artificial intelligence, these are going to be much higher in the next strategic plan. They were touched upon in the previous one. They'll be much more prominent in the next one.
Thank you. I saw one. Oh, yeah. You want to ask questions? Yep.
Okay. So hello and good evening. My name is Ahmad Ghazali bin Ahmad Kamil, coming as the Student Representative Council member of University Putra Malaysia. So for my question, it is open to any of the panels. So diplomacy is regarding making connections and pretty much having a understanding of your communities. However, when you are involved in an organization, how would you avoid conflict of interest or perhaps develop biases for certain communities when establishing diplomacy?
Okay, before the question posed to YB Howard, I have one question to YB Senator Dato'. Due to Malaysia will be a chairmanship for ASEAN next year, 2025, we have issues about Myanmar. So, in the perspective of parliamentary diplomacy, what is your thought about that? Thank you.
The answer is very short. It's not our issue. It's the executive.
Let me just respond quickly to that question. Actually, the issue of Myanmar, there are plenty of response that I can give you that is aligned with what the Deputy President has said, which is basically it's not our problem, it's someone else's problem, because it is. But in the spirit of diplomacy, I think Malaysia has quite a unique role to play, especially in 2025. As the ASEAN chair, we'll be able to, at the very least, influence the narrative of where that battle should go, right? So I think Malaysia should and can play a role in not just being part of mediation, but to be the host of mediation. Because there are intel coming from the ground in Myanmar to say that actually some of the generals are tired.
Okay.
The NUG, basically all the different parties are now at a stage where they are actually really ready to sit down and talk, but they need someone, somewhere, some country, some parties to bring them together. So I think we as parliamentarians, if and when we have that access to invite people here, generals here, I think we should take that opportunity, and I think there needs to be some initiatives from the executive to facilitate us to do that. Okay?
Oh, answer the question.
You
want to answer the question? Okay.
I'll be very frank. There will always be conflict of interest, whatever role you play, whichever organization you represent, and whatever capacity you want to practice diplomacy. The idea is not to highlight or to be too focused on the conflict of interest, but to actually seek commonality between who you're engaging, right? Because diplomacy is about finding commonality, for me, at the very least, and building a bigger picture, building a worldview, charting and plotting your map. So for me, I think the only thing I can say to you is put conflict of interest aside, don't worry about that, just engage. If someone gives you an opportunity to go to Armenia, go. If someone from any particular mission or high commission or any embassy comes to you and asks for your opinion, don't ask, are you inviting me in my capacity as someone from the student body of UPM? Just go as you, because diplomacy is as much about individual as it is about organizations and your country. So don't worry about it, just do it. Yeah.
1 minute, Howard. Concluding remarks, then 1 minute.
One comment.
Yep.
As a former Deputy Minister of Home Affairs, check with them first. You must make sure that you can come back here.
Betul tu.
So you wanted to say last word as a concluding remarks?
Yeah. I have a concluding request, actually, rather than a remark. I honestly feel that we need to learn more. Us MPs, members of parliament in Malaysia, need to learn more about how MPs in other countries, how they do their job, challenges that they face, and things they have to do that isn't part of the job description. So I think it will be really fantastic if it can be at least organized within the CPA, within the Commonwealth network, of actually real MP exchanges where they can come and live our lives for a week and we can go and live their lives for a week. How the pairing happens and how the exchange happens, where the money comes from is secondary. But I think it needs to be considered that as a potential intervention to counter all these lack of understanding and distances that's being built further and further despite more information available.
Interesting. YB Senator, Dato', 1 minute.
I don't need 1 minute. I just need to say the CPA needs to convince its members of the value of the CPA membership. If we don't do anything substantive, we don't have the clear objective, we don't achieve results from any interaction, especially on the global stage, and then we'll just drift and our members will just leave one by one. Barbados is one of them. And by the way, yes, no, but anyway, I'd like to wish Edo, you and the people of UK, is it the birthday of King Charles today?
It's the celebration.
Celebration. Yeah. So congratulations on the celebration. Thank you.
Please, Mr. Stewart.
Let me, if I may, respond to the 2 points here, actually, and then one from the audience. So I absolutely agree with the Deputy President that the CPA, we should take nothing for granted. We've got to earn the support and respect of our membership. The nature of our membership is it's constantly changing because of elections, so just keeping in touch with that membership can be a challenge. And for the Commonwealth more broadly, there is that same, I think it's an even more acute issue, which is why I mentioned the election of the next Secretary-General. But actually Barbados has become a republic, but they're absolutely still part of the Commonwealth. And I'm delighted to say they are hosting our conference next year, so demonstrating their commitment to us. Parliamentary exchanges, absolutely, and a lot of good exchanges happen. We could do more, but I'm also conscious the numbers who can travel will always be a small fraction of all members, which is why we're also looking at the online tools that might be available. And can I say something about Myanmar, or is that... Yeah. So in my previous role, the committee I chaired as an MP, we did a lot of work on Myanmar, particularly on the Rohingya crisis. And when the Commonwealth Parliamentary conference was in Dhaka in Bangladesh at the height of the early period of that crisis, the CPA very unusually passed a policy resolution about it. And I just wanted to say how appreciative I am that Malaysia, along with others like Bangladesh, are hosting so many refugees from that crisis. I know the Parliament in exile of Myanmar is still accredited to the Inter-Parliamentary Union, so I think there are some practical ways, without encroaching on kind of national policy, some practical ways that parliamentarians can support. Thank you very much for organising this and for the questions. Sorry there wasn't more time for questions, but maybe informally we can have some conversations now.
Indeed, yes. Finally, we have come to the end of our forum where we have our distinguished speakers, panelists have shared a lot of knowledge and their hands-on experience, which we do not even know before on parliamentary diplomacy. For the last word from me, I would like to thank again to all ladies and gentlemen for today and also to our panels. And time and attention, I pass to MC for final conclusion.
Thank you, Mr. Hadi, and to all the panelists for the sharings. I will also like to extend our heartfelt thanks to all the participants for your valuable contributions and enthusiastic engagement. Before we depart, I would like to invite His Excellency's speakers and His Excellency's High Commissioners to some light refreshments at the round table at the back. For the rest of the participants, you may proceed to the back of the hall for light refreshment. Thank you again and safe travels.
So, apa orang datang?